Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video, it's step-by-step process of planting yams from vines. Now I'm going to show you a list of some of the things that we would need so that you'll be able to consider getting these things for yourself. You are going to need a pair of scissors that we use to cut the vines, and we will need it to be sterilized. That means you need some sort of sterilizing solution. You'd need a bowl to put the leaves in when you're bringing them. You need sawdust. That's very, very important. You'd need sawdust. You'd need a stove or a cooker. And then you'd need a tin, because you are going to carbonize this sawdust. You can fill a tin like this with sawdust. Now this roses tin will be much perfect because it has a wider surface area and the depth is not much. When the sawdust is in it, the heat will be able to get to the top quickly. If you place this tin filled with sawdust on the fire, there will be fire all around, but then it will get through to the top quickly. Place a hole in the middle. You see some smoke coming out. The smoke will stop and you see a flame that's almost transparent. It has become completely carbonized. Then carefully, using tongs and wearing gloves, you lift it out of the fire and place it on the side and let it cool. Let it cool, please, before you open it. Now, this is not so tight a lid. You have to ensure that the lid is tight so that you don't have too much air going in. You want to burn that sawdust with as little oxygen as possible. We don't want it to turn into ashes. We want it to turn into charcoal. This is another option that I have. This tin is taller. It can still be used and it is actually airtight. Place it all on the lid and put it in the fire. Now, it's deeper, so this may actually be a bit different or take more time than one thing that is flat. But with all consideration, it is still good and you can still use this. Most popularly, the tins that we would have around would be something like Milo tin, Nido tin, all those chocolate drink tins. Make sure it is tin. That's what's important about it. Carefully fill it with sawdust. Place a hole in the lid and place it on the fire. Within 8 to 10 minutes, it should be done. You can give this a try 2 or 3 times to know the perfect time and how you can make the observation that the sawdust has turned into charcoal. There will no longer be smoke coming out of the tin, and then you will just see something that looks almost like a transparent flame coming out. Take it out of the fire at this stage and place it on the ground to cool. Then you may carefully open it and check. That's how you make carbonized sawdust. Or one like this. It depends on how wide the fire is that you're going to place it on. Remember, make sure the tin has a lid that is tight. And actually, it can be just a tin of Bonvita Milo Nido, peak milk. But make sure it's entirely tin so that it doesn't burn, because you're going to put it on fire. You place a hole right in the center of the lid. Fill this with sawdust, dry sawdust. It's better for it to be dry. The drier the better. So you need to spread it out in the sun so that it dries properly, or spread it out indoors. Just ensure that it dries properly, and fill the tin, then place it on the fire. Before you do that, you need to get a pair of gloves and a pair of maybe some metal tongs to remove it. If the gloves you have is not thick enough, you're going to need something like maybe a cardboard or a metal to pick this off the fire. So you turn off the fire, you take your tin and place it where it can cool. After the tin has cooled, you look in and you'll see that the sawdust has completely burnt. Now, when you put the sawdust on the fire, it's going to be ready within 5 to 10 minutes because the sawdust will burn very quickly. We don't want the sawdust, after it has burnt and turned into carbon, we don't want that carbon to burn. How you are going to know it's ready is when you first of all place it on the fire, you probably see some smoke coming out of the hole. But at some point, there will be no more smoke, and then you may see a sort of transparent flame coming out. Or it may actually be proper flame. A very tiny flame will come out. This is the time for you to turn off your stove or your cooker, or take it off the fire. Leave it and let it cool. You come back in about 2 or 3 hours and you open it up. You see that the sawdust has turned black. Don't worry if it's not completely black. If it's like 90% black and you have just, it looks a bit black brownish, that's still okay. But if it's like 50% black, you'd have to put it back on the fire. Remember how long it took to get to that point, and just about a third of that time you use to prepare your carbonized sawdust, because that is very, very important for growing these yam vines. Now, you can do things in different ways. If you take the yam vine and you cut it and you put it in water, it will grow roots. But the chances of disease are higher if you do it that way. If you put it in soil, it will grow roots as well, but the chances of disease are high. But the best way is to put it in carbonized sawdust. That eliminates disease because the sawdust is carbonized and it's a source of food. This carbonized sawdust will have to be activated. Now, to activate sawdust or charcoal, we need some form of nitrogen liquid. And that's why I was doing the mixing in my first video about growing yams from vines. So I'll show you the formula I used to mix this. It's very simple and stable. I will write it out so you can see it. You mix this. This is calcium. I'll show you how I made the calcium. I'm going to make calcium. Just take 2 little handfuls. That's going to be like 8 eggs. Some water. That's about a bottle of Cook 500 ml. And just turn it on and leave it to boil for 5 minutes. So I'll go now and let you see when it's boiling. It's boiling now. That's just it. I turn it off and let it cool. And there will be some calcium in the water that I can use. And then I'll strain this into the jar. I'll label this solution B. Calcium. So that's the calcium that I poured in the bottle. And I call it solution B. It's the same as the one I made about a month ago. So we mix this solution A and solution B 1 to 250 parts water. 1 to 250 parts water. That is, if I take 5 mils from here, I'll take 1,250 mils of plain water, and then I'll take 5 mils from this as well. So it's just going to be a very tiny amount that we need. You would use this to mix your carbonized sawdust. That 1.25 liters should be enough for about this size of sawdust. So you use it to mix it in. You can put it in a container and just stir it. Make sure it's thoroughly mixed in. You can see that it's obviously wet. Not that the water is flowing, but that this thing is obviously wet. And just leave that to rest for about 6 hours. Then you place it in small pots. You can grow 4 yam vines in each pot, because you're going to find that the carbonized sawdust is so little. Yeah, even if you have enough carbonized sawdust for these 6 pots, that means you can grow 4 in each pot. That's about 24. So it's just for you to try and start your hands at how to grow this thing from vines. If you make more carbonized sawdust, you'd have to activate it the same way. 5 mils of A, 5 mils of B in 1.25 mils of water. and you just pour it in and stir it, let it rest, it become activated. Divide it up into the pots and you have your substrate for growing your yam vines. The yam vines that you're going to use, make sure you cut it and each one has 3 leaves. We don't want the first 2 leaves at the very tip. They are too young. You can cut those off. Get the next set of leaves and make sure you have at least 3 leaves, not even at least, 3 leaves. Make sure you have 3 leaves on each vine. Place 4 vines in here and put it in the bowl on top of the table. And that's an ant. That's a tiny white insect just walking around on the edge of the pot. So we can assume that you don't see any ants around. But surely if you don't prevent the ants from coming along, you may not notice them, but they're all over, everywhere. Different types of insects just walking around and playing in the soil. You don't want that in your yam. That's why we need to place the table feet this way. And the water can remain for 2-3 weeks without completely evaporating. But if it does, please refill it. You can put kerosene on it to prevent mosquitoes. And this is what we need the 4 cans and bowls for. So you can just get any 4 cans on that you can find. Make sure that it's taller than your bowl, so that no matter how much water you put in here, it cannot get into the can. And you will just set it up like this. That's the can in the bowl at the feet of the table. And as much water as I pour in, that's going to prevent the ants from getting in. And that's just it. This table should be in a well-shaded place. It shouldn't just be outside, very hot sun. You can put it in a protected passageway, a protected shed, just to make sure it doesn't die from sunburn. You also want to maintain the humidity, so you can have some sort of cover. It needs to be humid and it needs to be away from the sun. Those are the 2 things that you need. And then you go every day and water it. You will use water at this point, not these fertilizers anymore. You use water, and after 14 days, you can take out this pot, turn it upside down. It should have roots. If you like, you can wait for 16 days just to be sure. It definitely should have roots. They may not be a lot, but it's time for you to go and plant it outside in the garden. You can put it in those bags that you've prepared. So with the feet of the table in water, but the feet is actually protected by the containers that you put in the water, so that the foot of the table doesn't start soaking up water. That's the purpose of this. But please try to use a container that is tall, so not something like this. This is not going to work very well because very soon the feet of the table can get wet. So using tall containers on all four sides, it may even be a glass bottle, it's better. We have the plants in the pot in the activated carbonized charcoal. That's a bowl. You can have a lid that is plastic, or we can wrap it with a net or transparent plastic. What you use will depend on what you have available. As much as it can make the plant to be humid, you don't want it to be exposed to too much sun. It needs to be humid and warm, so that when you come along, you can actually see it's looking a bit sweaty. So as I said, within 2-3 weeks, you can pull out the plants and they should have roots. You'll be able to transfer them to a bigger bag. I hope you can follow these instructions because I'm not really showing them right now because I haven't got my leaves anyway. So I just wanted to show it now so that you can be prepared and start doing it as soon as you have your own leaves. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll be able to grow better yams. See you in my next video.